Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 53 of the Fitness Devil podcast. Today we brought on Mike Howard, the man behind Lean Minded, and he's here. This is an episode that really dives deeply into a lot of mindset stuff. Bit of a buzzword, but we actually get into the good quality stuff. Importance of things like self-forgiveness, better self-talk, not getting caught up in negative self-talk, some of the cognitive biases that can become problems for us and how to tackle that. Pitfalls with rigid dietary approaches and why they usually fail. And again, some mindset stuff for better overall health and a really healthy discussion of books because Mike's a big fan of books and reading. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoy.
Shut up and sit down.
All right, I'm going to assume, Dean, that we're ready to go. Guys,
yes.
Welcome. So I had the pleasure of meeting Mike Howard and watching him present at the Inland Empire Fitness Conference in Spokane this past April. Our friend Tim Arndt had put on this event. It was really great. So we wanted to welcome Mike as a guest. I've been talking to him for a while to get him on here, and circumstance just so happened to align our schedules and move him up. So, Mike, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and your work at Lean Minded.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for having me. This is quite an honor. Looking through your guest list, it's almost intimidatingly so. But no, this is great. So I've been in the industry for the better part of 20 years now. So I'm kind of a dinosaur. I've worn different hats along the way. So started off training, managed a gym, got into teaching aspect of things, the writing aspect of things. And then more recently, took on a passion of training younger people, particularly younger people that have either special needs or issues with weight management, that sort of thing. And then sort of like so many other trainers, sort of morphing into the online space and, writing books. And just doing some online coaching in addition to my one-to-one.
Just doing things like just writing books and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I say that it's been one of those works in progress for way longer than it should have been. Right now, I think
a lot of us who've been in the industry, a little while. I mean, I'm at about the 8-year mark myself. And, most of my work has been very much in-person clientele. But, you start to wander into these other realms that seem to be the way people go. I do a little bit of online training. And, of course, obviously now we have this podcast. It's actually creeping up. I don't know if we actually took note of the year anniversary, but we're within a week or two, I think, of it.
Because it doesn't go off the episodes because we had a few doubles. But I think we're actually maybe on the 1 year mark. Maybe you hit the 1 year. We're just going to say you did, and it's probably not this week. You're a special 1 year guest.
We're such men, we don't remember anniversaries very well,
No, and it's funny because the way, even if we talk about content and time in the industry, like the way this happened is we didn't even really plan it to happen. It just did. And so it's just like anything else. Like your book took way too long. I don't even know why we didn't start a podcast earlier. It's just awesome, but shit just happens and unfolds the way it unfolds, and then you're kind of in it. And you're like, whoa, what happened to time?
And that's fantastic because I see the work that goes into people that do podcasts, and that's kudos to you guys. I'd love to do a podcast, but in my defense, I'm lazy and don't want to. But
it's the writing part. So talk about writing a book.
It's a lot of work.
It's the writing part.
It's also something we're seeing now. More and more people are doing it, and while I think there are a bunch of barriers to entry with this one. Obviously, there's the tech side of stuff and all the production side of stuff. And Dean does all of the technical stuff. I don't have a clue about it.
Andrew's 40. He never used a computer.
It's pretty ugly. But we've done okay with this one. Our downloads are actually pretty amazing. We're well over 100,000 all-time downloads. But we're also seeing a lot of people getting in just because they think that the podcast is the thing to do. We did it because we thought it would be a great opportunity. It's been an opportunity to get a lot of really great guests into one place and share who those people are, like you, and sharing you with the people who are core listeners. And then, of course, as we go through and every guest, their following picks up on this stuff, then they get linked up to other people as well. So it's about sharing good information and sharing good people. And obviously he's got a really great network.
And even getting to that comparison, is that kind of like we talk about the evolution into books and writing online, and kind of what was your reasoning, I guess, for getting into it? Because we knew ours for the podcast was networking and just something to create content that we wanted to do. It was easy and we could do. Is that kind of your thought process getting into your evolution of, we'll call it content evolution? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I started writing probably about 15 years ago. And, to be honest, I think that's kind of the introvert in me. The thought of even speaking on a podcast is, still to this day terrifies me, or getting up on stage. Andrew met me at the Inland Empire Fitness Conference. And, I think that was a big overcoming of fears of sorts. So I think the introverted nature in me just gravitated to writing, because I could just, do it. Stay in my little hovel and just, and create that way. It became a bit of an intellectual outlet, I guess, for me. And I love the research aspect of it. And for me, it was about trying to reach a wider audience too. You can only do so much in your sort of one-on-one context. And I just felt that, the industry needed some honest information, something that's a little bit more research-based. And I say that knowing that what I wrote 12 years ago, maybe even 3 or 4 years ago, was probably utter crap, and I wish the internet didn't exist. But, it was just a means to get the message out there. And I think, and you touched on it with doing the podcast, right? You're reaching a greater audience, getting, hopefully good information out there. And I was very fortunate that, 11 years ago, I got paid to write. I was writing for a site called Diet Blog, and then it just kind of leapfrogged from there. I had amazing opportunities. Tom Venuto was somebody that took me under their wing a little bit and let me do some writing for his amazing site. He's somebody I've always admired. And then, just different various writing gigs for like the Personal Training Development Center, my own blog, and then it just evolved into writing an ebook, and now, hopefully by early next year, a full-fledged actual paperback book.
A book with papers that will still be online on Kindle or something.
Yeah.
No, that's kind of crazy, just the way you think about that. Because especially, like, when did you start writing? Like, writing? Like, how long ago was that?
Writing. Yeah, Tom Venuto's site is probably, like 7 or 8 years ago. The Diet Blog site was more like 11 years ago. It's now defunct. But, I was writing regularly for Tom, and then trying to keep up with my own blog. And then, it's gotten a little spotty now. You set out to do like 2 or 3 blog entries a week, and then it ends up being 2 to 3 a year.
But that's how that's the evolution of, I guess, content in general. Like, we're talking about the podcast and then doing online stuff. And we talked about this with Dean Somerset, was that whole idea of, he started out through blogs, and that was like 2005. So if I'm looking like 8 years ago, like, anyways, blogs were more relevant back then. Like, writing, not to say writing isn't more relevant, but I don't go to the T-Nations and the bodybuilding.coms as much as I do like almost social media content and videos nowadays. And it's not to say writing's dead, because it's definitely not, but like, that was a good platform to get you where you wanted to go, where I wouldn't say that that's the first place to start nowadays. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Then, there's been a huge evolution of things like with social media. So I do try to keep up with my business page. So I try to contribute something to that, daily, or if not every other day, just to kind of keep that rhythm going, that beat going. But obviously to a far lesser extent, everything's in more sort of packaged infographic type of, easily digestible information now. And I think that works best for the noisy space of the internet. And people, you're competing for people's attention, and nobody's got time to read like a 700-word blog post or 1,200-word blog post.
That goes to another question. Have you found your audience has changed? Because we'll just say back in the day, maybe it was like fitness consumers, and now maybe it's more trainers who are looking for that higher end information. Like, have you found that your audience has evolved with that? Does that make sense? Because now that it's easier, more people are getting into it, but it's not your same crowd.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, and it'd be hard to pinpoint how, but I think just as you move to different platforms and you sort of, you slowly gather like a little bit of a following, and so I had people that, follow my page that were way back in sort of the diet blog days, or when I first started writing, like I put out newsletters. Like e-newsletters seem like the most archaic thing in the world right now. It's like I was writing it on like Slate or something like that, and sending it to people by messenger pigeon. But it's just. But I used to have I outsource all that stuff. Like I don't want to create newsletters by myself, and so I still have people follow me from those days. But yeah, no, for sure. And as you network with different fitness professionals, I have a lot of fitness professionals following me, which is really an honor, because I learn a lot from you guys and people that are following me. We follow each other, which is great. It's awesome in so many ways, and you have that network to keep you accountable too. You're not just you're not just standing from a pulpit and sort of delivering information. It's more of a conversation now. And no, it's cool. It's evolved in a lot of really kind of cool ways, and I'm just kind of trying to embrace it and roll with it. And I'm very sort of tech averse, so I just kind of, I don't know. At the end of the day, you just try to put out decent content and hope somebody reads it, and then whatever you try to
just see what happens,
captivate that audience. And
well, let's actually go into some of the content and the concepts that you are more known for talking about. And when we sort of put this together on short notice, but you and I talked about some of the things that we could bring to the audience here, and obviously mindset being a big part of it. So, Of course, mindset gets to be a bit of a buzzword in the industry as well.
Yeah.
Kind of this ubiquitous term that encapsulates a lot of stuff that's very legit and a lot of bullshit. So there's a lot of aspects to mindset. Would you explain the importance of self-forgiveness in caring for yourself?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're right about that. I mean, I delved into, just to give you a quick backstory, the arena of behavioral economics and social cognitive psychology, like probably about 6 or 7 years ago, just realizing that, we really need to get into the head of our audience and our clientele when it comes to a lot of these things, because you spend the time studying nutrition, and my background's in kinesiology, so there was really a need for me to further my education in that space, right? And just I think and one of the aspects of mindset that you sort of read about, and there's different aspects of mindset, we've kind of relegated inspiration and mindset to, again, these kind of fitspirational images and things like that. I think it's the industry has done the general public a disservice when it comes to a lot of that sort of thing. What we think is motivating the masses is really just kind of a circle jerk of the 1% that's already fit, and it appeals to them. So I'm trying to shine a different light on it. So circling back to the whole aspect of self-forgiveness, I think it all starts from there, being, caring for yourself, and not in a fluffy, I'm amazing way, more in just like, what the reality of you're going to screw this up. And that's just, your path, your journey is going to be one of imperfections. It's going to be one of obstacles, curveballs, all that sort of thing. And you're gonna mess this up, and you're not even going to mess it up once. You're going to mess it up several times along your path. And that's what it is. It's a journey. So I think self-forgiveness is one of the very first aspects of it. It's just saying, look, you can be dissatisfied, and you should be dissatisfied with your situation, but I think we're far too quick to attack ourselves in that, and just really get down on ourselves. And that does get a bit of backlash, because I get people, well, if you're constantly, oh my gosh, you're forgiving yourself, then you're not holding yourself accountable, and you're just going to keep making the same mistake. So there's two sides of the same coin there. So, I mean, with this self-forgiveness, you also have to have this honest self-reflection, right? So being honest with your current situation and say, yeah, no, things aren't good. I'm going to forgive myself, but, things need to be better. And you have to be honest about your situation too. So there's that continuum, that sort of self-forgiveness, honest self-reflection continuum that we have to be aware of.
Well, that's just it. The last part was just being aware of, I guess, that process, because I think that even circles back to that whole motivational quotes, is they don't make people aware. They just tell people how it is, and then there's no backstory to it. And that whole awareness piece is, yeah, like this is what self-forgiveness is, but I'm aware of why I'm doing it and what the next process is. And that's usually the step that's missed with all of it, is like, here's the 5 steps to this, and there's no backstory. People just follow it blindly. And I really like that idea of self-forgiveness with the awareness, because and you're describing both sides of the coin. Then you can choose if you want to do the good side or the bad side, but you can keep self-forgiving and not making, I guess, a follow-through action to it, or you could actually do something about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a stage to that, right? It's like, okay, when you do screw up, I mean, that's the thing. And I don't know if you guys agree, I think one of the biggest keys, one of the most important cruxes of long-term success is being able to manage those dips. Like when you do fall off, is like getting back on right away, you know, because it's easy to do this thing well when, you know, your motivation's high, you don't have as many obstacles in the way. You know, we're loving this in January 1st. Like we're all in, right? But are you going to be this way April 15th? And that's what we have to look at, is just if you can manage those dips and when the crap hits the fan in life, that's where the long-term success is going to come through, right? So I think there's a process behind that too, where we're like, okay, yeah, you screwed up. Okay, number 1, forgive yourself. Number 2, get right back on it, like now. Like, you know, don't keep wallowing in it. Don't, you know, and that's the thing. We kind of let things slide, and it's that what the hell effect where, you know, we screw up once and that's it. Oh, well, the week is blown. And everybody, fitness professionals, non-fitness professionals, know that, you know, 1 week easily turns into a few months, which turns into a year. And then all of a sudden it's, you know, you've really kind of sabotaged yourself and put yourself back in that hole again.
The thing that you directly alluded to that I think is really important is preparing people for the inevitability of those mistakes. When they understand that they're going to happen, it makes it a great deal easier to go, okay, this is what Mike talked about. All right, I can handle this. Give them the skills and the tools to be able to, as you said, get back really quickly. And I mean, what you said, we've all seen this. Friday afternoon, evening drinks, some bad food. Okay, cool. Well, then all of a sudden, not feeling so hot Saturday. Don't bother at the gym. I'll get back to it on Monday. That reset mentality. So when I hear the word reset, I've got a handful of old clients who, when they use that term reset, I jump all the fuck over it in a polite way. I try to sort of beat that thinking out of them. And if you can
he doesn't actually beat them. He might look like he did.
We have a lot of people that very much function in an off versus on mode. And that off mode is the default mode. So, of course, they get going, they're going for a while, but then something interrupts it, and then they revert back to default mode. People who are successful long-term, their default mode is very much on. There isn't really an off mode. They're able to step out of that temporarily, but then, of course, they revert automatically back to the good, balanced, regular exercise routine. And one of the things that I try to do with my clientele in particular, and I think this is really important to encourage people to do, is to try to condition themselves to that default on mode. I like dispensing with words like on and off. Because as soon as people allow that kind of thinking into their process, then they allow themselves to get into that off mode.
And what's been your process for that? Like, because you've dealt with it for a while. Like, what's your kind of go-to process to kind of get that mode? I don't know what you know what I mean? Not on and off. I don't know. Whatever mode that is.
Yeah, the on mode. Yeah, absolutely 100% agree. I mean, that's the thing. And and that third process to that, okay, self-forgive, get back on it right away. The third part of that is we circle back again to that reflection, self-reflection. Okay, what precipitated that? Yeah. What precipitated that screw up, whatever it was on Friday night? So we have to attack that type of thing at a very root level and establish habits. And when we establish habits for our clients, doing it like, one or two basic habits and nail those habits 100%. And I think when those habits become the default, the rewiring takes place in the brain, and then that our default then eventually becomes the on. And, a lot of things we do just autonomously. And then when those habits are locked into place, then when stuff hits the fan, then when life gets stressful, we have those default habits so we can stay on that as it were, right? So I think, Andrew brings up a great point there where it's like, okay, stop, stop with that on and off. And we do look at things way too dichotomously. And a lot of it is about reducing variability, right? If your weekend rhythm is the drinks on Friday night and then not feeling like working out Saturday, just relaxing Sunday, we have to disrupt that somehow. And then we just strategize on a very individualized approach, depending on the time.
It's funny because I'm diving back down on, I think, cognitive behavioral therapy, but that's pretty much the basis of that is the awareness of the situation. Okay, you fucked up. Why'd you fuck up? Can you explain, blah, blah, blah. And it's just that awareness piece of understanding what it is and then making that plastic. So having a plan for that. But that's basically the basic of psychology in terms of behavioral therapy. And it applies to nutrition. And I think that's why guys like you and Andrew and I kind of go to that psychology side, is because pretty much habit and change is rooted deep in the brain.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. And so, we as coaches, we have to expect that our clients are going to screw up, but we have to also counsel them in that way where we're like, okay, you know what? Why did this happen? What are we going to do next time? And then, the gaps between those slip ups increase, right? So, it's not a light switch process. Just like we don't want to be on or off a plan. Our behavior change isn't going to be, immediate and.
Well, and this goes to the other part of it, and I guess you called it awareness, and we'll just kind of generalize and call it self-talk, and how can people be better at self-talk, but also how do you kind of coach people not getting caught up in the negative self-talk and those patterns?
Right. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, we're sort of almost wired that way, and society wires us that way too. Our self-talk typically isn't good, and that's where this whole self-forgiveness thing comes in. But there are better ways to, talk to ourselves, because it basically shapes everything we do. It forms our narrative on how we look at the world and how we interact with the world. So there's different things, and a lot of this comes down to reframing, right? So I think one of the biggest things is using phrases, and this can make a huge difference, even though it's a small thought change, but I choose to, or I choose not to, rather than I can't.
Yeah.
Right? Say I won't. Don't say I can't, say I won't. And when we use that more directive language, we're taking agency. We're taking control. We're saying to ourselves that, we're calling the shots here, and we're not a victim of our circumstances. So using words like I choose to, I choose not to, that smells really good. Not in the plan right now.
I like
that. That forms some autonomy, right? And that's a key point. Another one is, and these ones are a little more quirky, but there's actually good research behind them. But and you may not want to do this out loud too much, but that's why it's called self-talk. We talk to ourselves, but in our head. But using, second and third person actually has been, shown scientifically to have some impact. So instead of, using words like, okay, Mike has to do a better job of this, right? I mean, it's usually associated with really egotistical sports icons when we refer to ourselves in third person. But, it actually helps because it creates distance from the situation. And that distance is kind of the entire premise of what mindfulness is, right? Yeah. So we can create a little distance from our problem and say, look outside of it and say, Mike needs to do a better job of this. Mike can do this. And another self-talk strategy from that is one called interrogative self-talk, right? So they call it the Bob the Builder method. So, instead of saying, I can do this, because those tend to be the platitudes, like, you got this, man, you can do this,
Mike's
keep going.
Got this.
Mike's got this. Exactly. So you can combine the two, but instead of, being directive, ask the question, say, can I do this, right? Can you do this? And again, that initiates a thought process of the how you're going to do it. It's not just a surface level thing. You start to think about, okay, can I do? Yeah. Okay. Then we start to think about how we're going to do this. We're digging beneath the surface of the level of consciousness, and we're making those changes from an inside out perspective. So those are just a couple of self-talk things that I advise people.
How much do you get into with your clients, I guess, the process in which you're using? So like the why behind it, because people will use, like, you'll just say use a different phrase, and like pretty much you're getting them to do the mindfulness stuff without telling them. How much do you get into it with some of them, like in terms of letting them be in tune of why you're doing this?
Yeah, it'll depend on the person, because you will find clients that they want to know the rationale behind things. Most of my people, though, I just keep it very surface level, and you can tell in their language, whether they're messaging you or you're talking to them in person. You just, as a coach, you just look for certain things, like, you know, I'll have clients that say, "Yeah, I'll try this," and I'm like saying, "No, that's putting your toe in the water. You got to jump right in there. Like, no, you're gonna do this, you know," or language like that. Like, well, we'll see how this goes. You're gonna fail, and I'm gonna tell you that, because when you're seeing how this goes, or you're gonna give it a shot. That's is somewhat interested, but we have to take them from that level of interest to commitment, in a lot of ways. So, yeah, no, it depends. And some people need a little bit more coaxing than others, but I don't delve too deeply into that sort of thing. I mean, it's not, to be honest, I'm not a registered psychologist. I read a lot about this. I can guide people, give them suggestions to this end. And if they're really struggling with issues, and that's a good lesson for coaches, I think, know when to refer out to, things that are out of your scope. But I tend to keep it surface level, but I do want them to, I think, just enough so that this becomes top of mind for them. Yeah. Right. This is in their consciousness level. They have that my annoying voice in their head going, "No, don't use those words." Right. And
you better refer to yourself. Like, don't speak without saying your name.
Yeah, exactly.
All I think about is Rain Man now. Like, fuck. And then I'm gonna hear your voice like, "Don't say that out loud." Okay, I won't. Dean, don't say those things out loud, Dean. Damn it.
Yeah,
something that I think negative self-talk kind of is. I think it's one of two things, actually. One is, I think people genuinely mean to be humble. I think that they coming from a humble place, but it inadvertently becomes something that is mean to yourself and beats you down. Mm-hmm. The second place that I think it is, we're scared of what people will say. And the world is can be a nasty place. I think we make it out to be a meaner place than it really is. Mm-hmm. But the world will find ways to beat you up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I think people say to themselves the negative things that they anticipate others might say. And if you say it to yourself, you take the sting off of it, or at least you think you will, when you anticipate that others could do it. You get to it first. The problem with both of these things is ultimately you are still regularly, daily, relentlessly beating yourself down, being really, really hard on yourself, and that adds up in your soul. And you end up doing much worse to yourself emotionally than the world ever could with anything that someone could plausibly say to you. And I hope people start recognizing these things. And if I hear someone saying something that's really overt negative self-talk, I politely but assertively point it out, and in the kindest way I possibly can, try to get them to be aware of it, and to try to get them to stop doing that to themselves.
But similar to like how we break it up by doing self-talk, like better self-talk or whatever, positive self-talk, and that becomes a habit, as much as honestly the negative self-talk can become a habit. You get more efficient at talking to yourself like shit the more you do it. It's like anything else. So it's on the other end of the spectrum. That's why positive self-talk usually breaks that habit. But knowing that every bad thing you do, the more you do it, the more you're gonna, I guess, default to that. And I guess that's the awareness piece too, is that it's not, you can have negative self-talk every once in a while, shit happens, but it's that whole idea of you keep coming back to it, that's a problem.
Absolutely. No, very, very good points, guys. I mean, that's what it comes down to is we through that constant reinforcement, we are wiring ourselves to be a certain way and to default to a certain thought pattern, and then which leads to habit patterns. So it's a process. I mean, this isn't an overnight thing, and it takes a lot to sort of unscrew yourself in that sense, and take away those and gradually replace them with more reframing, right? And there's definite downsides to too much positivity too, which is another topic. But I mean, obviously there's you want to be thinking better thoughts about yourself and more self-forgiving thoughts about yourself.
And even on like a personal level, so like I wouldn't say it's negative self-talk, but almost like a fearful self-talk is I've been injured countless times, football, surgeries, powerlifting, blah blah blah, to the point where like I would go to squatting with anxiety, and I almost had to reverse that because I didn't know I was doing it till I'm like, holy shit, like I'm so tense. And then it's just that pattern just becomes ingrained, and until you're kind of awoken to that process, you can't make the other side of the process, which is the positive self-talk. Because you can do positive self-talk, but if you're still reverting back and you don't know you're doing the negative stuff, then you're lost anyways. You'd have to say a lot of nice things about yourself.
For sure.
But I guess that goes back to the general information of like, I think the big thing now is like 5 things of gratitude every morning, but they're basically just building up those reps without knowing why, and it's... I don't know if they're aware of it, but
and those have a lot of merit for sure.
Andrew, hit him with the next one. Hit him with the next one, man.
Let's go a little further with this. And we discussed cognitive bias. This is one of the things that we want to go into. And the cognitive biases, you hear that word. I don't think a lot of people even know what that really means. But if you could explain that a bit, and then how they take us off track and how people can avoid some of those traps. So what are some of the big ones that cause issues for people?
Right. I mean, I'll touch on one sort of big one, and I think that branches off into more sort of subheadings. But I mean, in nerd terms, they call it the current moment bias or hyperbolic discounting. But basically, that's just our desire to have things right away, our instant gratification mentality, and that is biological and evolutionary, but it's also fueled by popular media and the diet book world and culture, in that you can get instant results. And, that's why we've whittled things down to 30-day plans. And, the last time I try not to go through the diet section of bookstores, but I do on occasion. And I always have to, throw up in my mouth afterwards. But there's no less than 4 or 5 books at any given time that are promising a pound a day weight loss, like for the first month or whatever. So we've been thrust into this false mentality that weight loss should be easy, it should be fast, right? So I think this whole thing of the instant gratification is one of the bigger cognitive biases, and that knowing that, these things take time. It is going to be a process is one of the biggest first steps. So, and then branching off from that, we have this concept of time and this misconception where, the I'll start tomorrow mentality. We always think we have more time than we do. And that's one of the concepts, and maybe it's because I'm on the other side of 40 now that I just kind of, you become a little bit more aware of your own age and mortality, but it starts to dawn on you that, if you always think there's tomorrow, we always think that Father Time is going to be, very, generous and forgiving with how much time we have, but and that becomes a trap where we always think we can default this to the next day or the next week. So that's part of that current moment bias, is like we think we have all the time in the world. And the second part to that misconception of time is what they call the planning fallacy. So things always take longer than we think they do, and that circles again back to these instant results, instant gratification, and when clients come to me, they're disappointed when they lose only 3 pounds in the first 2 weeks, and I'm telling that you're on a great trajectory there. They don't realize, but they're actually disappointed by that. And I think that is a lot of the conditioning from our society and our media and our, magazines and, social media. What's
your way of fighting that? Because I guess we can say that common knowledge now is that it does default to that hedonistic thing of we can get instant gratification. It should happen. I've seen it every fucking where on these books. What's your main, I guess, hammer for that with your clients in terms of battling that?
Yeah, no, and I think we have to look outside the body composition and scale and metrics in general, like when it comes to that. And I think we sell people on how they feel, their energy levels, things, their mindset and their just different subjective measurements, because those results you can see almost immediately. Because they're going to get discouraged when they don't see a certain number, or they don't. So I think we have to really sell them on the non-metric things that are important, right? So yeah, just improved energy, and just notice how you feel. Look at how much stronger you've gotten. Even the neuromuscular benefits of just they'll get strength gains fairly quickly if they're a new lifter. So we just have to emphasize a lot of that, and then just really, there is a lot of re-education that has to happen in terms of what is realistic. And if they've come to you after 15, 20 years of poor habits and poor lifestyle, and they're 50 pounds overweight, why are they planning, how are they expecting to undo 20 years worth of damage in 20 days, right?
Well, and that goes back to, I guess, what we wanted to move on to next, which is goal setting, and I guess we'll call it reasonable goal setting, and how it's argued over all time. So how do you get people to feel more, what's your most effective way for setting people up for success and achieving goals that are, we'll call them realistic in nature? Yeah, exactly. So, and the goal setting part is huge, and that's, typically something a coach will do in the early going. And I usually advocate for 3 different steps, or that's what I do myself. So I think the first one is, sounds a little out there, but finding your why and going deep with that. So not just like, okay, I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, well, why do you want to lose 10? But why is this important to you on the deepest level, right? So if they have children, okay, maybe growing up to see their grandchildren play. If they don't have children, okay, taking the best care of my loved ones and being around long enough and doing the things that I love to do. Like I love hiking, and I'd love to be able to continue to hike into my 70s, 80s. So something that's going to resonate them on a deep level, and we have to maybe probe a little bit to get past that just aesthetic. And there's nothing wrong with having aesthetic goals, nothing wrong with wanting to look better naked, absolutely. But we have to find that deeper meaning behind it so that there's more of an intrinsic motivational factor when it comes to that. The second part to that is looking at process goals. So what I call the goals behind the goals. So there's the outcome goal would be that 10-pound weight loss, but let's take that in reverse a little bit. Let's reverse engineer that and say, okay, what's it going to take to get to that? We're going to focus on the habits that are going to get you there. So maybe it's meal prep in the morning. Oh, it's all, well, I'm rushed in the morning. Okay, well, let's wake up a half hour earlier. Okay, well, then that means we have to go to bed a half an hour earlier. So we're working backwards a little bit to allow them to have those habits in place that are going to get the outcome goals. Right. So whether it's meal prep or whether it's doing some extra, walking throughout the day, just things that are process oriented goals. So not, so much having a bench pressing 250 pounds, but getting to the gym 3 days a week, or, not so much being able to do like that. Just worry about showing up. Showing up is 90% of it. So showing up to whatever it is, your workout or gym, showing up for yourself to shop, chop and prep a bit of food every day. Those little habits will make big dents in your overall progress. And then the third part of the goal setting process I find important is looking at your goals through a lens of sacrifice. I think we tend to look at goals as these check-marked wish lists. They become wish lists. Okay, I want to lose weight. I want to get fitter. I want to get stronger. Those are great, but we tend to only see a clear path ahead of us when we're excited about something, right? And again, this is sort of the January 1st versus like February 17th mentality. So we have to prepare our clients, and we alluded to that earlier, about the reality of the obstacles. And what are you willing to give up for this? What are you willing to sacrifice? What pain are you willing to go through? Because it isn't going to be, It is going to take work. It's going to take a giant kick to the
comfort zone, and we have to prepare our clients for that by looking at it through a more realistic and sacrificial lens.
I thought you were going to say groin for a second.
Yeah, I was like, do I use the word balls? I don't know.
I don't know what our demographic is, but we'll say it's 50-50. So
proverbially speaking too, because everybody.
And you'll be able to swear on here. Don't worry, let loose.
Okay. Yeah.
Junk would be more neutral, I think. I don't know. What's the neutral term for that?
Yeah, kicking the crotch is good.
Crotch,
Yeah.
Okay, you were going there, right? Like you were saying that because there's a pause, and you're like
general area, and then it's just like okay, yeah.
I was like, I know what he wants to say. I'm like, that was a good workaround though for not trying to swear.
Yeah, no, I was like, yeah.
Oh, okay, Andrew. What about I guess I'll just go with the next one. So again, this goes to the goal setting and kind of going outside and being realistic, but that also talks about the people think that they need to be rigid with their dietary approach. So why is this problematic and setting people up to fail, basically?
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, we'll circle back to how dysfunctional our weight loss industry is, because that tends to be what's in the conscious mind of everybody is like the 30-day plans, the cleanses, the detoxes. And, the industry, I think one of the biggest failures of it is that we are trying to oversimplify things, and we're trying to say, okay, this causes you to be fat and this is the solution. So we get into this rhythm of just banning food, banning categories of foods. These foods are good, these foods are bad. We have this dichotomous approach to things. And yeah, no, it does. It sets people up for long-term failure, mostly because the way I put it once, I don't know if I remember how to say this verbatim, but yeah, we're trying to pound the square pegs of dietary rigidity into the round holes of just individual circumstances, right? So when we're playing by somebody else's rules and these rules are rigid, the result is eventually failure. I mean, mind you, some people are in that abstainer category, and they could, they're square holes. They're in that category of which people call sort of the abstainers, where they can do it. They're highly motivated, and it does work to some degree. And I have to be clear, you do need some restraint. There has to be a restraining component to it, but flexible restraint tends to work better long term than rigid restraint, is what I'm trying to get at. Rigid restraint does have a higher risk of developing disordered eating patterns, relapse, re-weight gain, whereas flexible restraint does have more of that staying power. And again, I mean, it depends on the individual. If somebody's morbidly obese, there's nothing wrong with them losing several pounds a week for several weeks, because their body needs that. And studies actually do show that initial bigger weight losses can actually still translate into better overall progress, especially if somebody's got more weight to lose. But ultimately, you do want to take a more flexible restraint approach, right? Again, the kick to the comfort zone. But I think our clients and people have to have some choices within that. Otherwise, they're just going to be miserable. And it just, we have to find that fine line as coaches between getting them results and not having them be too grumpy and miserable in the process.
It conjures up, and of course, everybody always talks about keto. Every second post on Facebook is keto. But ketogenic diets, intermittent fasting, these are ideologies that are fairly rigid in the way that they're constructed. And they've been around long enough now, and I want anyone who's listening to really think about this. And do you know anyone who's actually really stayed on that approach for a sustained period of time? And
I know one.
I really can't think of anybody off the top of my own head. And I think we know that these approaches can work if it is the right approach for most people. Most of the people seeking them out are people who are a little desperate, a little vulnerable, who are looking for that quick fix, like you mentioned earlier. They're not suited for these approaches, and the rigidity is something that's completely unsustainable for them, which is going to lead them to relapse, yo-yoing. So a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now in these popularized approaches are classical fad diets or classical yo-yo dieting rebranded into a sexy and marketed new form. So I think people need to be very, very careful with this. Veganism can take on that aspect, but veganism is unique in that there's such deep moral implications with it that we see a lot of people who are very successful with utilizing veganism as a long-term committed approach. If it's moral, ethical, then I think that works very, very well. Otherwise, when you dabble in it as a fad diet, I know people who have come on and off it as well.
The problem with, I was going to say, the problem with all of that is you're right, like they're fad diets, and much like the books and 30-day challenges, is they fucking work. But they work short term, and it's almost like it pulls the wool over their eyes. Like I have a bunch of friends that are just like, they'll always revert back to keto when they want to lose 10 pounds, but then they always gain it back, and it's just like it's almost tough to tell them it doesn't work because it worked for 30 days, and then they got a dopamine rush from it. They're like, yeah, that's the fucking answer. And we're fighting that because like you can lose 5 pounds of water in like 3 days. It's like, well,
absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess that's the education piece. And like, I guess coming from your experience, have you had to deal with that a lot? And kind of, again, what was your main hammer for kind of nipping that in the butt? Because I'm sure you have people that come to you with like, I want this, I know it's going to work.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys are absolutely right. You've said pretty much everything I'd have to say about it. I can only add to it by saying, no, I have not seen too many people that have been on ketogenic diets long term that are still on it, and I think you're absolutely right. It's taken up a lot. It's gotten a lot of traction because it does produce a lot of fast results. And when you have a lot of people with these testimonials of like, oh my gosh, I lost this, then it gets even more traction, and people don't realize. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, okay, well, we have to redefine the word worked, right? Because you'll just say people say, oh, keto just works, and that's it. Okay, well, we'll define works. I mean, so you've been on it for 2 years? Well, no, I've been on it for 7 weeks. So but show me, works to me, and that's how we have to redefine success. We're defining success as short-term benefits, and that's why I lock heads with a lot of keto people, and I put a YouTube video about my misgivings about Whole30, and most of the comments were not very supportive, and that's okay. You have to skin when you put yourself out there, but they're like, oh, you have no idea what you're talking about. This isn't a diet. This is a reset. I'm like, and I've lost like 20 pounds. I'm like, yeah, well, you're eating, just 3 things and living off air. It's just, that's, you're going to lose weight doing that. Oh, I felt great. But the other problem to that is we're comparing everything to the standard American diet.
Yeah.
Anything is going to look better. And, like any change that you make is going to be better than what you were eating before if you were eating the way most North Americans eat. So, we are thrust into this, false reality that, this is a magic diet. Look at all the weight I've lost. So whether that's keto or some variation of keto, intermittent fasting. And, I've been in the industry long enough to see all the different permutations of low carb, and they all say the same thing, right? Like in 2002, it was like, well, Atkins has been around for thousands of years. We've been evolved to eat this way. Yeah. 2011. Oh, keto's been around for thousands of years. We've been evolved to eat this way. And then it's just,
I get it. I know you wanted to say it, but it's like 7 weeks, and the studies show long term if protein's accounted for, they're all the fucking same. And then so like that's the main message, is it all fucking works, but defining long term success is where the other tools come into play. And another thing with the Whole30 too, because I think it's a reset. It was designed as a reset for people with like SIBO, like people with legitimate GI issues, and like they even come off of that because like they have to take care of their shit, and then they put things back in their diet. They don't do it forever. Yeah. Like, fuck.
No, exactly. And that's one of the criticisms I get. But then, we can go on about, some of the head scratchers of it, because there's some foods that are definitely more allergenic than others. I think it's disguised as a low carbophobic type of plan, to be honest. I mean, even though there's research, but there's different ways to do elimination diets that aren't that rigid and that strict. I mean, you can do it in stages and under the guidance of somebody that knows what the hell they're talking.
It's because it was attached to paleo. So like, and there's nothing against like whatever, but like it's because that tribe got attached to like an elimination diet. That's the diet that like they went crazy. I'm not even
it's the
surprised.
mentality, yeah, and it's the mentality that it breeds. I'm not afraid so much that it's dangerous but it does tend to lead to dysfunctional thinking about food, and because people that have done the Whole30 are convinced that legumes and beans are like evil foods because of like phytic acid and whatever other reason that they've conjured up. And so they develop this unfounded fear of certain foods. And they're like, oh my gosh, I was allergic to that. I had no idea, right? So, yeah, well, maybe you weren't, but I don't know.
Yeah. Fuck that is what you want to say. Let's bring it back to positive. Let's bring it back to like mindset. I know that's kind of what we kind of wrapped up this whole nutrition and mindset and goals. It's kind of all comes back to mindset, but let's just give our audience some strategies for better overall health. So like, let's just say you're like one or two go-to things to just kind of tie all this in together.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, aside from what we alluded to earlier, which was the self-forgiveness, self-reflection continuum, right? Really working the self-talk angle. One of the things I like to advise people on too is just, and it goes along with mindset, but I think our mindset and our environment commingle and coexist, and they have to be synchronous. So setting up your environment for success, and that is going to eliminate a lot of the need for, because we talk about motivation and willpower and this and that sort of thing is overrated, to be honest. And when we set up an environment, both in our home, our office, our wherever it is we work, our travel, and our social environment, that takes away a lot of the necessary willpower that we need. So I think I'm a huge proponent of setting our environment up for success, getting those triggers in place, making your bad habits 20 seconds or so harder to do, making good habits 20 seconds easier. So whether that's putting, fruit and vegetables in your fridge at eye level, just having healthy food present. For me, like if I have ice cream, I just throw away the lid because I'm not going to need it. So I just don't have it in my house. So for a lot of people, that's what works for them. Hide the stuff way back there. Put your running shoes at the door. Have emergency snack kits in your car, in your glove compartment. Have mini cans of tuna, that sort of thing. Social environment, right? And that comes down to like, who are you hanging out with? Maybe spend less time with the friends that are going out boozing every Friday night. Spend more time with the friends that are going for a hike. Learn to say no, thank you. And then branching from that, my other tip would be, and I think this one is huge, they're called implementation intentions, which is just kind of a douchey way of saying a plan. So it's a science nerdy way of saying just have a plan. Wake up every morning and say, okay, here's my day. Here are my opportunities to eat well and move. And you map that out, and then you be even more vigilant if you have events or parties or social engagements where there's going to be exposure to a lot of hyperpalatable food and alcohol. You be even more diligent with that and say, okay, you have that if-then scenario. You create that if-then scenario. If I'm offered the cookies, I will say no thanks. And it's not to say you don't indulge in any of it, but you choose beforehand what you indulge in and how much of it.
You're aware.
So maybe you usually have like 4 beers. You just decide that I'm going to have 1 beer. I'm going to nurse it. I'm going to focus on the social aspect of the social engagement and not on the free food and the alcohol. And where you just say, okay, I'm going to gravitate more towards the protein and vegetable options. I'm going to try 1 dessert. There's going to be 7 desserts there. I don't have to have all 7 desserts. I'm going to choose the one that looks the best, and I'm going to eat that dessert and just one of them. So that's where these implementation intentions come in, and just it creates that top of mind awareness for what you're doing. And I think if you're constantly looking for opportunities to progress, you're going to set yourself up for longer term success. So those are my go-to ones, I would say.
I really like the environment one, because like
that's good.
Because environment's what got us here. Like everything's so fucking easy to have, and I guess like I like that 20 second longer, because like I know for a fact if it's 20 seconds, they're going to be like, screw that. That's because your brain always wants the easy way. And if you make it 20 seconds harder, damn well you ain't doing it.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
I love that one.
Something that Mike and I actually talk about a fair bit when we're interacting on social media is our interest in books. We both are pretty ravenous devourers of information and good books. So we always ask every guest.
Mike asked to talk about books, actually.
Yeah.
And we're like, don't worry, man, we got
We
this.
could have done a whole episode on books with Mike. What are a few of your highlights, your favorite books, the things that you think are the most meaningful to you personally and to perhaps other people that people should really take a look at reading?
Yeah, and most of the categories of books I've read, and I think getting an Audible account was kind of a game changer for me about 3 or 4 years ago. So when I consume books, I consume them in the audio format, and I found I was just able to get through way more books. And thank you, Andrew, because you've recommended a lot of ones that I've read. So again, a lot of the books that I've read have to do with the human brain, mindset, that sort of thing, but also entrepreneurial. And then just other special interests. I mean, one of the ones in terms of trauma that I read, I guess about a year and a half ago, that really spoke to me was The Body Keeps the Score. And I think that one's really, really good for anybody that's, if you've experienced trauma yourself or somebody that has. That was kind of a bit of a game-changing book for me. In the mindset realm too. I mean, I love Kelly McGonigal's work. She did The Willpower Instinct.
Great book.
Yeah, that one was really good. Rewire. There's one, Timothy Wilson. It's called. Oh gosh. Okay, it'll come to me. But there, a lot of the behavioral economics books are great. Like Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. Kahneman and Tversky have some amazing books out there. In terms of the entrepreneurial world, Essentialism that you recommended, Andrew, that one was really good.
Everyone needs to read that book. Yeah, it's so fucking good.
Yeah, and I think there's a theme that's tying into a lot of these books I've read recently. So there's that one, The One Thing, Culture Code. Yeah. One of the principles, I mean, one of the unifying themes of these books too is something we touched on too earlier, is like, just focusing on the things that matter and just trying to escape the noise. And a lot of these entrepreneurial business books have a lot of application to the fitness industry and habits. And, when you start reading these books, you start seeing these underlying themes of like, it's just creating habits that are going to make you better in whatever realm it is. And when I delved into a lot of the mindset stuff, it was a full-length mirror for me too, going, oh my gosh, like I'm doing a lot of weird, I'm doing a lot of shit here that's wasting time. And, I need to, so this was an education for me, even though I set out to be educating other people. This was really, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. And when you learn a lot about yourself, you can relay your own experiences to other people. So one of those unifying themes is just like trying to cut out the noise and really focusing on doing one thing. And Barking Up the Wrong Tree is another great book I read recently by Eric Barker. So that one was a good one too, in terms of just just the way we think as humans and how we can do better, how we can leverage our own minds towards creating
and basically
something great.
It's kind of cool because we have this theme always, but I think that if you can take these books that have nothing to do with fitness really, and then apply them to your situation, they become universal. And it's again picking out those universal themes and then seeing how you can take it and disseminate it and add it. And I think that a lot of people miss that point. Is they'll read all these things and they'll be like, I read this book, but they're not getting the point. And the point's pretty universal through all of them. Like, they're pretty common stuff. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And how to add it in.
And that's the thing. They apply to every realm of life. And, when I talk about mindset, I mean, this is habits. This is universal. This isn't just about your fitness or your health. And, you can take a bigger picture approach. And this is life. This is what it's about, changing our narratives, changing our own story, rewiring our brains. That's going to help you in every aspect of your life.
Andrew,
that's amazing.
You're talking Andrew's language. He's like, check. Hey, we're friends. We're friends.
That's a good book. I'll probably shoot you a message in the near future because I'll be looking to load up on a few books. I've been chewing through a couple. Unfortunately, I got into a couple of books recently, and I actually had to stop one of them halfway through. It was a book called Own the Day, Own Your Life, and it was so packed full of pseudoscientific bullshit. And it's super popular, set for the pop masses. And it's so full of shit. It's so much questionable science in it.
Yeah, I was gonna say platitude laden books. Like that's the thing. I Yeah, like the whole. Yeah, I get you. And we've talked about it too, and the books that have swearing in them. Andrew loves those.
And I like to make fun of this stuff, and I'm a little harder in my rhetoric than I think there may be some value in some of these books.
You should know better, man.
I tend to think of if a book has swearing in its title, it's really very entry level, and it's meant to appeal to. I think the positive can be that it can get people reading books that otherwise wouldn't, if that makes sense.
But
I also think
agree with you.
It's like the motivational quotes.
Yeah, but I mean, now I think some of those books I haven't read. I did read the what's Mark Manson's what the fuck is that stupid book called?
Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It's the most hypocritical stack of nonsense I've ever read.
Andrew really hates that book.
It's fucking stupid, useless book. The guy's full of shit.
Well, I usually, like, what filter do you use for finding books? Because usually what I try to do is find the dude in the industry who kind of did it all and then wants to write books. And then I usually kind of go off those guys as opposed to just going to, well, if you look at surface level authors, you're going to find surface level shit. It's kind of how I delved into it.
No, that book blew up, got popular. I read it because I was curious, and then it's like, oh man, this is crap. I'm on to another one right now. It's called Sleep Smarter, and it started out with a ton of promise. And then all of a sudden he gets into his nutritional recommendations, and he's a low carber. So, and he's citing a lot of one-off studies all over the place. He mentions Joseph Mercola as a source on one particular point. And if you're not familiar with Mercola's a famous charlatan, and that almost invalidates this guy.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And then the nutrition stuff is complete bullshit.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, it really threw into question a lot of the other recommendations, and some of it seemed really valid. So I was really disappointed because I've been saving this book for a while. I think there's some good stuff there.
Yeah.
But shit me, all of a sudden, if he's citing bad science.
Oh, I know. That's the thing. It does cast question everything. Yeah, absolutely. And I found that with and she's very popular, Gretchen Rubin, and what was the book? It's a couple years old now, but she did The Happiness Project, but it's her follow-up book. Oh my gosh, and it has to do with habits. I'm drawing a blank right now, but Better Than Before, maybe? Anyway. But I was reading, I'm like, a lot of this makes sense, and then she's citing Gary Taubes and I'm like,
like just and your own.
I think she has a bias towards abstaining too. So I think she was just very kind of slanted towards the abstaining type of, and it just kind of, I don't know, it kind of made the whole book a little bit shady, unfortunately. I mean, it's, you sort of take the good information and cast away and that's the thing about learning about critical thinking, but at the same time, it kind of tainted it for me, and I could not include it in my recommended books because of that, because the general public will read that too, and most of the people are looking for these answers are general public. But I'm with you. The whole, they call it the sham industry, right? The self-help and actualization movement.
Yeah.
And there's a great book out there, right? Did you ever hear of that one? How he talks about it, sham, the self-actualization movement, how self-help made America helpless.
I haven't.
Yeah,
that
he says,
it's a stupid motivational quotes. I fucking hate them.
Yeah, well, that's just it. So you get a lot of books that are built on platitudes and all these, and I get it. I try to get, read something with a little bit more depth and a little bit more relevance. But for sure. But those are the books that sell, right?
If reading those books gets someone to places like Thinking Fast and Slow, and I've said this before, Dean and I, it was some sort of thread where he recommended the book, and my thoughts on Thinking Fast and Slow are this. If you're an entry-level reader, that book is going to be way over the fuck your head. It's so long, it's so deep.
Yeah, I've read it twice.
It's great, though. It's so good.
Start there, please, for the love of God.
No.
Start with stuff like Essentialism. Start with stuff like Seth Godin's Linchpin.
Absolutely.
Go read some Tony Robbins if you want to learn like that pep talk.
No, but Seth Godin's great. Seth Godin strikes that great balance between it's inspirational, but it's not platitude filled. It's not like it's not trite. I've read a ton of Seth Godin stuff, and that's really good. And if you're looking for entry level in terms of critical thinking, I found David McRaney's stuff is very entertaining. You Are Not So Smart. You're Now Less Dumb. So he has a good kind of entry level, easy to understand, easy to digest look on critical thinking, and it's great. It's a good kind of full length mirror look too, because you can look at it and say, okay, and come out of it knowing we don't know what we don't know, and that's the biggest problem.
Okay, now ending this book affair. Before I ask you where your social media is, I just want to give my own review. I ran out of Greek yogurt for my shake, and there was avocado in it, and same texture, not as good, but it worked. just for everyone to know. See, that got you guys to shut the fuck up. Where do we find Mike? Where does our audience consume all stuff you and let them know where to find you?
Okay. Oh, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. So leanminded.com is my website. My Instagram is @leanminded. You can find me on Facebook. Just type in leanminded. And Twitter, lean_minded. Whoever took leanminded,
yeah, they screwed you.
You jackass. It's some jackass, somebody with an egg as their profile, and like 4 followers. I'm like, really? Anyway, I'm not bitter. But yeah, no. So you can find some content there, and launching a few exciting online coaching programs in a couple of weeks. So yeah, no, hit me up. And I love questions. I love the interaction. I love learning. So you know what? Just absolutely. This whole thing is a conversation, and there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to learn about ourselves. And I think there's you guys do a great job here, and you're part of the solution, which is awesome.
Well, and I want to apologize. I made a above 40 joke about Andrew, and you didn't look above 40, and then you're like, I'm 40. I'm like,
I don't believe that.
You both look under 40. If that is my apology, so it's a good thing.
No, that's okay. That's perfectly okay.
Foot and mouth after you're like, oh, I'm 40. I'm like, fuck.
Whoops.
Yeah, that's hard.
Mike, thanks for coming on such short notice. Again, we really needed to scramble to make sure we had an episode, and you've been on. You and I have talked about this, and we've wanted to get you on for a while, and you were a champ, and coming in like this. This was fantastic, guys. I really hope that you actually do go and follow Mike Howard's work on his social media and his website. I think this episode had a lot of stuff that we haven't really dived into too much before. And I think it's a sort of again, mindset, big buzzword, but it's the sort of stuff that a lot of people really benefit from. And the message that you put out, it's a lot of good there. And anyone who's interested in reading books, just follow you for that even alone, because you're going to put out lots of stuff there. As for anyone who may be discovering us for the first time, you're a friend or a follower of Mike's, we've put together, we're in the low 50s on episodes right now. We recently had one with John Goodman of the Personal Trainer Development Center. We had Dean Somerset on again. He's always makes an appearance in some way or shape or form. I
hit him up earlier.
Episodes. You hit him up earlier. And we're going to have a episode, hopefully in the very, very near future, with Brad Dieter and James Krieger, who I know,
together
know quite well.
As one big nerds.
Presented at the same fitness conference. So we're going to get those guys back, and we have individual episodes with each of those guys. So if you're interested in a lot of stuff we talked about here, I think your audience might really enjoy those 2 episodes. So go back and check those out.
And Nick Sorrell's was very similar.
Nick Sorrell was great too, yeah.
Cool.
So, thanks again for coming on, man.
Thank you guys. This has been amazing.
This is fun.
And rate us 5 stars.
Again, guys. This is awesome. Yeah.
Peace out, guys. Good. We got it.
Shut up and sit down.